Today in wrestling, we're going to be discussing this tweet that went out from Brandi Rhodes. It could very well possibly confirm the backstage issues with AEW. Newsflash, every job is not perfect. So we're going to talk about that. Also, Gable, Stevenson, WWE plans. And then, of course, we got to talk about Impact Wrestling as there was another departure. I'm going to give you guys my opinions on everything that's happening in wrestling on a daily basis. You may agree, maybe you don't. It's okay. That's kind of why we bring people together, to have healthy conversations about wrestling. And if you guys want to join in on the conversation, you could do that by checking out the Discord link in the description down below. It's completely free. We're building a community, hundreds of people talking about pro wrestling on a daily basis. It's really awesome. Let's talk about Hernandez. Fightful Select recently reported that Hernandez and Impact Wrestling have amicably split. And look, the 49-year-old has left the company. He was on a handshake deal. It's pretty simple stuff, right? Now, Impact has obviously had a couple departures recently, and then they've also had a couple signings, and I find their strategy to be interesting. I'm not saying their formula is the best formula, but I am intrigued to hear your guys' opinion because Impact doesn't necessarily sign the biggest names in free agency. They don't necessarily sign free agents from AEW or WWE. At times they do bring them in, but for the most part, they kind of go after independent wrestling names that you may or may not be familiar with. And I kind of like this strategy because I think Impact, they've brought in guys like Bronson Reed, aka Jonah. They brought in, they've brought in Chelsea Green. They brought in Matt Cardona. They brought in Brian Myers. They brought in Bullet Club. They've brought in Jay White. They've brought in all of these names. Then they bring in people like Mike Bailey or Masha Slamovich or Lady Frost or Giselle Shaw, right? Also, I'm not going to read you guys the spoilers, but there was a debut this past weekend, an indie wrestler I was not familiar with. I believe he may have appeared on AEW Dark as well at one point. Very dark gimmick, almost Undertaker-esque. Face paint and all that stuff. And, again, without spoilers, I looked at this and I looked at what Impact has done in the past with like Decay and Abyss and Rosemary. And I thought, wow, like this might actually potentially be a good signing. I don't want to jump the gun just yet, but it's very well possible. And I look at Impact Wrestling and I see, Hernandez, 49 years old, leaving. But on the other side of that argument, you have Impact who are bringing in names that you may not be familiar with. I always use Steve Maclin as a great example, right? Steve Cutler from WWE, not really noticed, not really used, goes on to Impact and becomes a big part of Impact. I think Impact is doing something pretty damn special with the way they bring in talent. And I'm just curious to hear that conversation or have that conversation with you guys as to what you think. AEW is signing a lot of former WWE talent. And I think a lot of that too comes down to budget and having way more money than you can imagine. But I don't want to discredit Impact either. It doesn't take too long for you to literally go on Google and Google how much money Anthem, the parent company of Impact, has. You can see these reports and they do reportedly make a lot of money. But why is Impact not bringing in these free agents? And I know some people are going to say, well, which wrestler wants to wrestle for 100,000 viewers? I mean, maybe that's an argument, but also at the same time too, would you really want to see, my question to you is, do you really want to see WWE guys go into Impact or an AEW wrestler go into Impact and then I don't know, I feel like what their strategy is doing is something different and unique, especially because we see AEW bringing in WWE talent. I think having Impact not necessarily do that all the time actually could be a benefit to them long term. Does that make sense? I'm not saying one way is bad or the other way is good. I'm just saying, I think everybody has their own strategy. I just don't necessarily hate their strategy, I guess. All right, guys, Gable Stevenson. You may remember him. He was drafted to WWE Raw. Obviously, WWE has tried making a big deal out of his signing. It's been a minute since WWE has talked about him. Obviously, they put out a tweet congratulating Gable Stevenson, and they did make sure to mention WWE Raw Superstar, which is awesome. That means WWE hasn't necessarily forgot that Gable Stevenson is supposed to be on the Raw brand. There was a lot of belief that maybe Gable Stevenson was going to go to SmackDown because it's the A show. Surprisingly, lately, if you guys watch my post show or if you guys are in the Discord, I've actually been saying how much better Raw has been than SmackDown lately. Raw has actually been pretty damn good. Not perfect, still has its fucking problems, but it's gotten better, which is good. It's obviously a good thing. Gable Stevenson won the NCAA championship. NCAA, baby. He's in the game. He wins again. He finally retires from amateur wrestling. Now he's going to WWE. WWE has actually reportedly been training him. Apparently he's been getting trained. There was reports that came out that he's like ready. There is this belief that he's going to be really good in WWE. There's a lot of belief that Gable Stevenson is going to be a big part of WWE as well. There is a belief that he will be there at WrestleMania as well. Now, the belief is because he actually tweeted it himself. He tweeted himself he'll be at WrestleMania. Now, I don't know if WWE actually has plans for him at WrestleMania. They could just literally do a camera panning to the crowd type of thing. Maybe he can get involved in a match. Maybe he interferes in a match. I don't know. There's a lot of opportunity there. It's a weird thing because he's not on SmackDown, but I think like him possibly assisting Johnny Knoxville and beating up Sami Zayn would be like a massive thing for WWE to do. Because I think for WWE to really make Gable Stevenson become a big deal in WWE, they got to put him in a spotlight right away that will have people talking. Now, former Olympic gold medalist, 2-time NCAA champion, like this guy obviously has a lot of potential in WWE. He has a good look. He has like, from what it sounds like too, he's really charismatic as well. We'll see how that pans out. But there is this belief that he could actually work out in WWE, and I think the best way to do that is by putting him in one of those big time moments. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comment section down below. All right, guys, and I want to turn the conversation to Brandi Rhodes. Brandi Rhodes has a lot of people talking. Why? You might be asking, why does she have a lot of people talking? Well, today she put out this tweet, Happy Monday. Then she posted a picture of the Good Quotes Instagram post. The next chapter of your life will make a lot of people regret not treating you right. Well. I don't know. It could be a coincidence because it is Monday. And Cody Rhodes could very well show up on Raw tonight. But the conversation doesn't just stop there. We all know about the reports of WWE, obviously being interested in only Cody, not Brandi. We know that there's reports of Brandi doing television stuff and a whole bunch of other stuff, which is awesome. I think she'll do great. But then there was some rumors and reports, obviously Wade Keller had mentioned something in the past about EVPs fighting in AEW and issues, and then everything was good. I don't know. When I read this tweet, I'm just thinking maybe people are thinking too much into it. Obviously, we're looking at what social media is posting. Social media is weighing in on this. It's important for people to know that Brandi Rhodes could very well just be coincidentally posting this, or she could very well be confirming the backstage issues. Now, if you guys are unfamiliar, PW Torch and other sources have reported that there had been a lot of infighting between Cody, the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega during a long span of AEW's existence. Now, if you go back on this channel, you'll find all these videos as well, because we had been talking about it in real time as they went down. Those sources also noted that Cody told the other EVPs he was unhappy 2 weeks ago. The EVPs all thought that despite Rhodes voicing that he was unhappy, that he would work out a deal with Tony Khan and stay with AEW. This was released right around the time that Cody Rhodes announced that he was leaving AEW. So, is it very well possible that Cody and Brandi really did have backstage problems? Now, here's the thing. Two things I really want to make very clear. One, first and foremost, not every job is perfect. I worked as a high-level manager in a business, and honestly, I stayed there for what? I worked in that business for 8 years straight. It's not perfect. You're going to have issues. You're not going to see eye to eye with other management. You're not going to see eye to eye with other executives. You're not going to see eye to eye with other people. It's just how it is. It's the real world, right? Not everybody, it doesn't always work out. After 8 years, I decided to go and do YouTube full time, right? Then you also have this reality where, like, obviously a job is a job. You're not always going to be perfect. But then you also have this other reality that maybe too many hands were in the pot, right? Too many people in the kitchen. And that was something that we talked about in the early stages of AEW as being a potential issue. Now, one thing I also want to make very clear, and it's super important that I mention this, super, super important. Cody and Brandi were very instrumental in AEW's success. And I truly mean that if without them, I don't think AEW would be as successful as it is right now. I genuinely believe that. I also believe that AEW has done a phenomenal job, and more specifically, Tony Khan has done a phenomenal job to basically make it to the point where AEW does not rely on one talent. And you might be asking, how can I prove this, or what can I say to back this up? I just look at overall ratings as an indicator, because I don't believe in the ratings, but I look at it as an indicator. And I feel like if Cody Rhodes or CM Punk or Bryan Danielson was that make or break for a company, you would see a huge difference in the ratings, and I don't feel like you see that, which is a good thing. That means people are bought into the AEW brand and not necessarily just the talent that are signed to the company, which is a great thing. I also do believe some of that credit goes to AEW's Cody Rhodes. When Cody Rhodes was in AEW, he definitely pushed this anti-WWE rhetoric. A lot of people forget Cody Rhodes pushed the anti-WWE rhetoric in the company. And I think that got a lot of wrestling fans on the side of AEW. And now that Cody Rhodes is gone, he's a hypocrite. He's a piece of shit. He's an asshole. It's all his fault. But I think really Cody Rhodes sold you guys, the fans, on this anti-WWE rhetoric. So now you're offended that he left. I don't know. But the backstage issues could very well be a real thing. And it's a very interesting situation. I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section down below.